India's government is facing its biggest youth-led challenge in years. Thousands of protesters from what are known as the Cockroach Movement have taken to the streets of New Delhi demanding that the education minister resign. On Monday, tension escalated near Parliament and protesters were met with tear gas and a heavy police crackdown.
Chaos on the streets of New Delhi as baton-wielding police charge protesters. Thousands, mostly students, had gathered near India's parliament to demand the resignation of Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan over exam irregularities, including leaks of questions and technical glitches.
I have come here because the rotten system is not taking action and cannot see the pain of the students. So many people have gathered here from different states of India and I decided to be part of it.
I voted for this government, so I think it's accountable to answer our questions. That's the basic right, human right that I deserve. And I think I'm liable for whatever is happening because I voted this government, and hence I'm here to ask for answers.
Behind Monday's outlawed protests was the youth-led Cockroach Janta Party, or CJP. The movement decided to own the name after the Supreme Court Chief Justice used the insect to insult young people he said are unemployed by choice. They're angry over repeated scandals in India's education system, one of them recently forcing millions of aspiring medical students to resit exams last month after questions were leaked in advance. That followed another failure of the online marking system for high school tests. The leader of the CJP recently staged a hunger strike in opposition to the government and says people have grown tired of being scapegoated for bureaucratic failures, as reflected in the group's soaring popularity since launching in May.
In 24 hours, we received more than 50,000 members. And on Instagram, we crossed almost 1.2 million just in a day. That is when I realized maybe the youth here is trying to send a message, is trying to give a message. And I tried to understand, like, what are they trying to say? I tried to interact with them and they told me that they are really dissatisfied with all the existing political parties. And it's because nobody listens to them, nobody even talks about them.
Amid the tear gas and police arrests, the CJP said its leaders had met with a senior minister on Monday and submitted a letter spelling out their demands. But until young people feel their government is acting on their concerns, these so-called cockroaches plan to remain underfoot.
And joining me now is Rumela Sen. Rumela teaches comparative politics and South Asian politics at Columbia University. Rumela, it's good to have you with us. You know, one of the striking things about these demonstrations is who is protesting. I mean, these aren't traditional political activists. I mean, who are these young people? And do we know why have they decided that they've had enough?
Yes, well, thank you for having me here today. I think the protest started with the young people, but it is no longer just the young people with Sonam Wangchuk and others joining. It has now sort of been a more Indian protest of the middle class, the ordinary people who are upset with how things are.
As you say, this is really about something much larger, about opportunity, unemployment, and a feeling that the system is no longer working. Am I reading that correctly?
I think yes. This is one way of looking at it is as something of a Gen Z uprising that happened in South Asia, as you know, in Bangladesh, in Nepal. It also went beyond the region in Indonesia, in other parts of the world as well. So there is this general feeling among the young people that opportunities are drying up. And also there is not much understanding among the political elites what kind of fear and anxiety regarding their education and employment these young people are facing. And this is not just India, but in other parts of the world as well. And in India, it particularly started, as you know, with this comment from the Chief Justice of India that some of these not so well-credentialed young people from not so well-known universities are like cockroaches. So this reference to cockroach, was an insult, but, they just sort of reclaimed this insult, which is, again, similar to other Gen Z movements, particularly in Bangladesh. When the prime minister insulted the young protesters as sort of the fifth columnists, the betrayers of national cause, they internalized that and made that their power. So in this case, it started with that, but it's more than just the education, or how this rich poor divide or the generational divide, the general anxiety. It is now also about accountability. It's about accountability of the elected politicians. It's not unheard of in Indian tradition that when, for example, there is an accident in the railways, the railway minister would resign. So when there are these repeated, leaks, and there was this on-screen marking controversy, there was this corruption in the tenders, the reason that these not so suited company was in the first place responsible for this on-screen marking. This is a whole web of grievances that have now come together. And it is not just the young people, it's the parents too.
I want to come back to the name of this movement, if you will, Cockroach Janta Party. I think, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I mean, what you're saying is the students have basically taken a word that was used as a pejorative, as an insult, and they're reclaiming it, and it's now, the headliner for what they're trying to do and change.
Yes, I think it's very smart. It's very creative, from the perspective of social movement research that we know. This is very, very effective. For the longest time in India and in other parts of the world, there is this generational anxiety that there are more and more old people in power who are making decisions, and the youth are sort of alienated from the decisions that are going to affect their future. And that is everything from education to environment, and in many other countries as well. But when the leader of this movement, who was at that time, I think, here in Boston, he sent out a tweet at that time that said, "What if all the cockroaches came together?" In response to that very derogatory and very ill-advised and comment that was in very bad taste by the Chief Justice of India. And that got a lot of response, and it eventually became very popular because there was this growing sense that the rich, the powerful, the successful sort of look at these youth from lower caste, lower class, the suburban cities of India, not from the capital, not from the fashionable gated communities, that they are looked down upon as unsuccessful, as if they are responsible for not being successful as those who are now in power, like the Chief Justice of India. So that insult, that feeling of alienation that was now sort of official coming from the Chief Justice of India, that was already there. So that's why I think it was pretty smart organizing.
And we saw this crackdown today. I'm wondering, what's your opinion on that? What will that do? The government has agreed to talks. Do you think the protesters will see that as a genuine concession, or is this too little too late?
I can't speak for the protesters as such because I have not been in communication with them. But if I look at the evidence in the general literature on social movements and repression, there is systematic evidence, particularly in a democracy, when there is this kind of repression, it just makes the movement stronger because there are now more people that are going to join and support these people, the young protesters. And, it sort of takes the shape of a moral outrage. It is much more than just that comment of cockroach. It is much more than leaking the exam. It is much more than those marking discrepancies and corruption. It is now about whether this country, this democracy, is responsible and accountable to the majority of the citizens. And as I was saying, it's no longer just about the students and their future, their education, employment. I mean, the parents also see, that their people don't have the future that their generation had. It's education has always been the tool for social mobility in India for a long time, over the past 2-3 decades. And now, if that's no longer fair and accessible, then what?
Yeah, you bring up a very good point. Rumela Sen with Columbia University. We appreciate your time and we appreciate your insights in helping us understand this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.